NERDSoul.
Why are you a black man in love?
Passion for this shit, you know.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Black Together, a walk in her shoes. I am Lady Lisa. I'm here with my sister, cousin, supposed alleged partner in crime, Madam Buddaphlai. Say what's up.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.
All right, so for those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. We are just two black women just giving our opinions on different issues that apply to us, or issues in general from a perspective of black women. So we are on the second part of a series we just started called Who's Loving You. Our first part we just talked about, and let me get back. Part one was called Pretty Hurts, and we just talked about our standards of beauty as black women. So we kind of went through that. And for today, part two, it's called the swap meet, because they got our butts and we got their hair. So we're going to talk about how we got here, why we're here, and where do we go from here. We're going to go into detail about. So to just recap, no. Before we can recap, we need to put on some shoes. What's in our shoebox today, Madam Buddaphlai?
Well, I thought long and hard about this. And because of the nature of this part, I decided that there's not going to be anything in the shoebox. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we're so busy trying to reach in somebody else's box to get what they have, and we're not appreciating what we have. And so they're taking what we have, so then we're left with nothing. So whether it's a whole lot of nothing or no nothing, we got nothing. So there you go, and there you have it. We got a box of nothing today, ladies and gentlemen.
A whole lot of nothing, or no nothing. All right. There was a song that says nothing plus nothing leads to nothing. All right. There we are. I mean, we left with nothing. So hopefully we got a good pedicure, because otherwise we looking crazy. Got that crusted heel that looks like you could just like slice it off like cantaloupe. Okay. All right. So anybody who's listening for the first time is like, what in the world? Don't mind us. We just like to have fun. Okay. So anyway, to recap just a little bit on part one, again, we talked about the basic standards of beauty we have as black women. We talked about how that relates to and is oftentimes determined by white culture, white female culture, European culture, if you will, in general. So that's kind of what we covered in part one. So now we're diving deeper, in part two. So once again, we're talking about the whole scenario of really other cultures taking bits and pieces of our culture as they see fit and making it their own, and us honestly taking bits and pieces of beauty standards of other cultures and making it the standard for us. So it's kind of become this really ridiculous mishmash. But on top of that, when our pieces of culture are taken, we're looked at, when we incorporate those pieces, if you will, it's looked at as ugly or unacceptable. But when it's worn by a Kardashian, it's exotic, it's hot, it's new, it's this, it's that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna dive into that foolishness, if you will. So again, let's talk. I mentioned Kardashians.
Yes.
Those ladies. And you made a note about one of them in particular. You wanna touch on that?
Yeah. So the first thought that came to my mind when we were discussing this for the show was, cornrows, the Kardashians, the Jenners, they all did it. I think maybe Kourtney's the only one that stays in her culturally appropriate lane. But I guess that depends on when you ask. But also Katy Perry did the same thing with at the VMAs with the geisha dress. And I mean, there's countless occasions where celebrities, just in the last 15 years or so, where that has happened. But one of the kind of pinnacles of this ultimate beauty moment in this, I think it was in the 70s, was with Bo Derek.
Yes.
With the cornrows. That was like, for kids who grew up in the 80s, that symbol of her, coming out of the water with the cornrows, that was like the image that was on auto repeat in the 80s,
and for those of you who don't know, Bo Derek was white.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Right. There are some people that aren't as seasoned as us.
Like, what's wrong with that? Bo Derek has some braids. No.
Yeah. So yeah, she was like the poster child for beauty at that particular time, and so like you said, when we would display that, it was undesirable, unkempt, slave-like, whatever negative description that you want to put on there. That's kind of how it was. Yeah. But I even saw a picture. This is probably in the last 6 months, of a white woman in a fashion magazine wearing a do-rag, and I cannot remember what they called it, but it was something like a satin something, like satin sheath, hair sheath, or
like
something,
a satin hood or a satin sheath. That sounds like that would be it.
And she had on a yellow do-rag. I kid you not, it was tied and everything. When I saw it, I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing. And it was like in one of those, I don't know if it was Cosmo or whatever, but it was one of those. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is, when will it end? She looked absolutely ridiculous.
But I'm sure she was posed, though. I'm sure she was posing like, yes, yes, honey.
It's like, what waves are you trying to achieve, ma'am? I'm just saying, because I know why my husband wear a do-rag. Are you trying to achieve the same thing? Is all I want to know.
You're like a matted, crinkled mess.
I'm just wondering, like, did she slather sulfurate down before she put it? I'm just wondering. Like, what's the goal here? I don't know.
Oh my God, that would be a slickety mess. Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it does look that ridiculous a lot of the times. And going back to Katy Perry, it's like she was trying to get the gold for it at one point. It was one video of hers. I don't remember the song because I'm not that crazy about her, but it was one video of hers I saw where it's like she said, okay, how many cultures can I appropriate within 6 minutes of this song? And go. I mean, she started off with an Egyptian, headdress and the Egyptian makeup. And then later on, she had on, some geisha girl stuff. And then later on, she was trying to be, I don't know, like a b-boy, whatever, with a gold tooth and a chain. I was just like, ma'am, did none of your team, no one said, maybe maybe we should hold off on it. People can't handle all of that. Maybe we should just, nobody on the whole, nobody.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Which speaks either to the lack of diversity or the lack of a voice of her team.
Either way. Yeah.
Because it takes a whole slew of people for a production like that to be put on the TV. It's not just, hey, I'm gonna make a video, me all by my lonesome, me and this phone. Like, that's not how it works. So a lot of people had to give the head nod on that for that to even be seen.
Yeah. So you'd also made some notes on kind of a little bit of history, if you will, in terms of cultural appropriation and I'd say maybe objectification of us.
Yes. So as I started thinking about just that whole concept of the cornrows and all of that stuff, like, kind of like what is the earliest information that I have about that type of thing? And what came to mind was Sarah Bartman, who basically is like the epitome of colonial exploitation. And for those who don't know who Sarah Bartman is, she was a African woman that was basically taken by Europeans and placed in this circus, or like the freak show type circus. And the reason that she was placed there was because of her, what they considered exaggerated body parts. She had a large behind, large hips, large breasts, and that was something that the Europeans were not accustomed to seeing. And back in that time in the 18th century, if you look at the way that women's dresses were, they had bustles to give the appearance of a larger behind, because at that time that was one of the beauty standards, although it wasn't something that was really part of European reality. So Sarah Bartman was placed in these freak shows. She was taken to people's homes for private shows. They were able to touch, grope, prod her for all of her life. And even after she passed away, her sexual organs, not her reproductive organs, I want to be very clear, her sexual organs, along with her brain, and I want to say maybe her skeleton, but don't quote me on that, were all preserved in a museum in France until the 70s. And her body, the remainder of her, was not sent back to her homeland until 2002.
Oh my God.
Okay. So, this is something that's serious. So, not to go off on a tangent, but I think just kind of like the idea of making the Black woman a caricature, kind of started with that type of story. I mean, Sarah Bartman may not be the first, and she definitely probably wasn't the last, but this is someone in history that we do know about. So that was kind of, like just the starting point for me in terms of, okay, this is a place that I can reference where being Black and having the features that we have was made into a commodity in a different way. Outside of slave trade and rape, this was something different.
Yeah.
And so, when you bring that forward into modern times, the lip injections, the butt injections, all of that kind of exaggerated look that Europeans in particular are doing, it just kind of puts me in that frame of mind. Like you're making an exaggerated version of African features to create a new beauty standard, and it's unappealing on a Black face or body, but it becomes desirable when it has a white face.
Right. Now, on a white face, it's acceptable, it's desirable, it's considered exotic. All of those things. And it's just laughable. And I was just sitting here thinking, and not to, keep going back to Kardashians, but there they are. I've seen pictures, because I'm sure for those of us who remember when the Kardashians first came out, even being able to remember that, we've forgotten what they originally looked like.
Right.
But I would challenge you all to go back and find pictures of any of these women when they were younger. You will swear up and down that is not the same person. There is no way in this world that's the same, especially Jenner. Oh gosh, she's a big model now.
No, you're getting them mixed up. So Kendall is the supermodel. Kylie is the one that got all the plastic surgery done. Kylie is the one that, because now Kylie looks a lot like Kim. But she didn't,
So, I guess that's the one, because it's like, is she the youngest?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, because I saw a picture of her when she was younger, and I was just like, you're kidding me. This is kind of crazy. And even with Kim, I thought Kim was a cute girl to begin with. She was naturally a cute girl. And she did all of this different stuff. And it's crazy to me that all of them, except for Courtney, like you said, I don't know, Courtney was just like, I ain't with all of this. I'm gonna go have my babies and mind my business. I'm gonna have my babies with my white man and mind my business. I'm just saying. But all of them have done this. And I know their mother is like so proud and so over the top, because of course she had a hand in all of this. But my thing is, as a mother, I wonder if she, well, no, I don't wonder, because I know she doesn't. But I would think as a mother that she would want to step back and say, why is it that my girls have gotten all of this work done in order to look nothing like themselves? Nothing.
To look like her,
like
because
themselves.
all the work she had done.
It's crazy. So they all have the lips, and this is some new commercial for something. I don't even know what the commercial is for, because I can't get past Chloe. And the lips, like, it looks like her face is gonna bust, because she has so much stuff injected in her lips. And I'm sitting in this commercial where it's with her little girl, and I'm like, is her little girl ever confused about, like, okay, so what is mommy gonna look like today? Because it has to be times where she's like, I can't find my mother. I can't identify my mother. Are you my mother? Because it's like, it's just so over the top. And it's just, like you said, it's exaggerated. It's overly exaggerated. It's like, no one has lips like this, man. You look like somebody bust you in your mouth with a 2x4. And they think it's cute. They think it's sexy.
Yeah.
And it's just I have no words. And I've seen some celebrities, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. One particular Portia Williams, I think her last name is Williams. I don't know what her last name is now. But Portia Williams off of Real Housewives of Atlanta. Yes. I saw her on something I was flipping through the other day, and it looks like she has some lip injections. And I'm like, why, ma'am? Why? I mean, because her lips looked huge. And I used to watch Housewives of Atlanta. I've seen her on there. And I'm just, why? I don't get it. So, like, are we going to start doing this to ourselves too?
Well, I mean, some of us have. When you look at Lil Kim, when you look at K Michelle,
Bless her heart.
even though Vivica Fox, even though it may not be as common for us, we're doing it too, and it's sad. It's really sad, especially, well, I don't want to say that any one particular situation is more sad than another.
Mhm.
All of these women starting out fresh out of the gate were all beautiful women,
Right.
and they decided to do things to their bodies for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And now they don't look like humans. And that's what,
Yeah.
because I don't have an issue with, hey, it's your body, it's your life. You do what you want to do. Um, I start to worry about mental health
Right.
when you do things to yourself that make your features non-human like.
Right.
Like it's physically impossible for a human to look this way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I draw parallels, like when people have eating disorders,
Yeah.
and they may be 90 pounds, but when they see themselves in the mirror, they see a fat person, and we can
Right.
see their ribs and in their collarbone and everything.
Yeah.
That's kind of the parallel that I draw when you're looking in the mirror and you think that what you see after you've butchered your face is an improvement, and it doesn't even look natural.
Right.
You know, that's
Um,
sad to me.
it's very sad. I remember some years ago, I think it was on Dr. Phil. I can't remember if it was on Dr. Phil or Oprah. So you know how long ago this was. But there was a lady who came on there who could not bring herself to stop getting plastic surgery. She had pretty much anything you could think of. She tucked everything you could think of under the sun, and she couldn't stop. She just couldn't, and she looked like a monstrosity. She looked like, do you remember the movie? Oh, was it called Sleepwalkers? Where the woman and her son, they would like turn into like these cat looking things with the horrible graphics from back in the 80s. Anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, look it up. Movie Sleepwalkers, 1980s. We watched we watched that not too long ago, and we were just like, we laughed more than anything because it's supposed to be like kind of a scary, kind of creepy movie.
Right,
But
right.
we laughed so hard
Yeah.
in these places where the graphics and the effects were horrible. Horrible. Horrible.
That was
But
all we had.
that was all we had. That was all we had. But Lord, when you look back, but this woman looked like they did, with the, I don't know, the looking like you were made up and something is on your face to look like a cat. I mean, she was just, everything was stretched and, tightened and injected, and it just was horrible. And I don't know, I just wonder how we got here. Well, as I say that, I know how we got here because we've been fed, that what we look like naturally is completely unacceptable. It's ugly. It's not attractive. It's better if it's white. You know what I mean? All of these different things. And, I think some of us have just fed into it to the point of we want to mutilate ourselves to quote correct it, and we haven't been fed correctly, love for ourselves as we are, whatever our features are, large lips, not so large lips, big behind, not so big, whatever it may be. We haven't been taught that you love yourself as God made you, period.
Right.
That's what you got, and it's kind of like you said too, of course anybody can do whatever they want to with themselves. We're not sitting here trying to say you can't. We know that we're all grown, we're adults. We're just talking about the mentality behind it, the psychology behind it. Because, my thing is, you should ask yourself why. And I know this doesn't happen or happens rarely, but I would hope there is a plastic surgeon out there somewhere who does sit a patient down and say, okay, I understand you've gone through all the detail of everything that you want to do, but let's discuss exactly why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You
Well, I
know,
think anybody like the woman that you described on Oprah or any of these kind of extreme cases, if they ever identify who their doctors are, you should definitely run the other direction.
yeah.
I'm not against plastic surgery. If that's what somebody wants to do, by all means, live your life how you feel like you need to live it.
Mm-hmm.
But do your due diligence in looking for these doctors, and also do your due diligence in the psychology behind why you want to alter yourself surgically,
Right.
because any doctor who's willing to go to that extreme for a person, um I just don't think it's ethical. My thing would be, I need to have some kind of documentation from a psychiatrist
Mm-hmm.
stating that you are of sound mind,
Mm-hmm.
and in making this decision for it to be done when it's excessive like that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I don't care how much money you have. As a doctor, they've taken an oath to do no harm. And that to me is malpractice. I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's negligent. So
Not here in America. Not if you flashing those American dollars. But you're exactly
yeah.
right. You hit it right on the head. How could that not be a conflict with your oath to not cause any harm?
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't. That's the bottom line of it, is it doesn't. But we've talked about the lip injections and the Kardashians and Jenners and whatnot. But let's talk a little bit about BBLs,
Yes.
Brazilian butt lifts.
Hmm.
Um, I think I was telling you about this, but we watched a special, or I think it was a YouTube video. We go down the YouTube, rabbit hole all the time. But it was a YouTube video where a young lady, I believe she was from Miami. She seemed really young. I mean, she looked like she could have been anywhere from 18 to maybe 22. Really, really young. And she had scheduled a Brazilian butt lift. And I'm sitting there like, your butt ain't even fully developed yet, child. But anyway, all your butt hasn't come to you yet. But but wait a while, honey, it'll come. But she had scheduled a butt lift in Florida. I'm sorry, in New York, which was interesting because I think she was already in Miami, and I think her reasoning was they were so expensive, I believe, in Miami because that was a place to go. I can't remember what her reasoning was. But anyway, she was flying to New York to get a Brazilian butt lift. And so she was taking, the viewer through it step by step and, in the room and all this kind of stuff. And it looked like Mike Tyson had pretty much just beat up her body afterward. And it was just cringeworthy, quite honestly. And she talked about the tubes and stuff she had to have, coming out of her hip to drain fluid, for days. She had to wear all this different padding, like on her abs and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, it was just absolute craziness. And I think she did a lip injection in the middle of it too, because I think while they were in there, like, why are we in there? Let's go and take some fat and put it in your lip. So it was just, it was a lot going on, and it looked so painful. She said it was painful, but it looked absolutely horrific. It looked like she had been in a horrible car accident. That's how bad it was. And it cost her thousands and thousands of dollars, which I'm like, who has all of this money, especially at such a young age? Where is this money coming from? That you don't need to use for anything else. And it was just really, I don't know, it was really disturbing to me. Again, because she was so young. And I believe she said it was something that she hid from her parents as long as she could because she knew what they would say, kind of thing. So I'm guessing this video came out, long after or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like you're doing all this traveling across the country. You're going through all of this money, you know, and all of this pain. And I think in the end, when it all was said and done, because we kind of skipped through, it was extremely long. She still wasn't satisfied with the end result.
Of course. Of course. And, you know, the BBL is one of the deadliest plastic surgery procedures, which I had no, I had no idea, because you watch reality TV and you think everybody's doing it. And, you know, if it's not done in a hotel or an alleyway somewhere, where then it's pretty safe. But no, across the board, that is one of the deadliest cosmetic procedures. And unfortunately, a lot of these young girls are going to these underground places, trying to get, you know, that same effect for less money, and they're having things injected into them. And, you know, it's either killing them on the spot, or it's leading to, you know, skin infections, amputations, necrosis, which is your skin dying, just so many problems. And it's sad to me that a person could be so dissatisfied with themselves that they are willing to go to some random person that they don't even know and let them inject material that they have no idea what it is in them, in, you know, in some seedy room like that. It's beyond my comprehension.
Yeah.
Women have been put in jail for running these types of rings, you know, where people have ended up dying. This one woman was injecting, I want to say, like concrete, or and like Fix-A-Flat, and
I remember hearing that.
All of that. It's so I don't understand. I don't understand. And when I was, is, you know, I was like, in the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, I'll say, a lot of the women look the same. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Bratz doll face, you know, big lips, the lashes, very tiny nose, or you have shaded it all to be damned so that it looks like it's a penny. You know what I mean? And then, you know, the cinched waist and the exaggerated hips and behind. And, you know, the video girls that we would see, like in the 90s, it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? You saw all shades of Black women. For the most part, I mean, they were thin. You didn't really see heavy set women as video vixens, but, you know, they had normal, natural bodies. Nothing was, you know, put out there to look really, I don't even know how to really say it, but nothing was really exaggerated, put on display like that. And the video that I remember where it really felt like the body was being displayed in a Hottentot kind of way, was Outcast, I Like the Way You Move. As far as the large behind, because I mean, we could talk about Two Live Crew and all of that, but they were still their bodies were still regular bodies. They were twerking and all of that, but they still had regular bodies.
They just like butts, period.
Right. But the just that whole, you know, the cinched waist with the huge behind. That video, there was one girl in the video, and all of the camera shots were like from her heels, from her shoes, panning up to her behind. And then after that, or, you know, I should say all in that same time frame, is when you started seeing, you know, this shift in the way that the girls in these reality shows started to look.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, I believe that that is by design. You know, that we've gotten to this place now where these young girls, they all look the same.
Yeah.
You know, they all look the same hair, same godforsaken eyelashes, you know, the contouring, the, you know, all of this nonsense. And it's like, well, does the guy even know who he's getting? Because by the time he gets, but by the time he peels all of that off,
Yeah.
like who is he getting? Who are you? And why do you feel like you need all of that in order to be beautiful?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not an enhancement. Because the way I understood makeup is just to enhance. It's like to put a little zhuzh on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Make a diamond twinkle, not cover the diamond up, encrust it with rubies and emeralds, and
Yeah.
then market it as a sapphire. Like
Uh-huh.
that's you know what I mean? It's
Right.
like it's crazy. I just don't get it.
It was
I don't get
something.
it.
It was something we watched. I don't know if it was a picture or what it was, where it had a woman, you know, all made up, and then it had her when she took her hair off and everything. And NERDSoul looked up, and he said, "Hello, young man." Because that's what it looked like. She had no hair. When I say none, no, not a stitch. But she had on all of this wig that was like full and all this makeup, like I said, the eyelashes. And the other picture was like she had on no makeup, no. And you, it's like this is not the same person.
Mm,
And it's like you should be able to be identified when
right.
that's like should be a minimum. You should be able
Right.
to be identified as the same person when you take
Right.
off your makeup.
Right. Right.
And,
Your mama should not have to pull out your dental records to know that it's you. You know what I mean?
yeah, baby, is that you? That should not be the question your mama has to ask. Okay. it's
Right.
it's crazy. And the thing is this, you know, to go further with it and to be a little more serious, it's like you become a slave to it. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're in a place where you feel like you have to put on all of this day in and day out, well, then you start feeling like, well, I can't go out not looking like this because
Right.
everybody's used to seeing me like this. So if they see me without it, they're going to be like, well, what's going on? You
Right.
know, and am I going to feel okay
Right.
without it either? And I honestly, years ago, probably in my 20s, remember kind of going through that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would wear a lot of makeup and I was not comfortable going out of the house without it. So I kind of
Mm-hmm.
became a slave to it because I needed to get to a place where I was okay with me.
Yeah.
And that's what it all comes down to. You have to be okay with you, but you know, when we become a slave to what everybody else thinks
Mm-hmm.
and what our image is, which is still a fancy way of saying what everybody else thinks,
Right.
you know, then
Right.
it's I don't, you know, to me it has to be hard to live that way,
Yeah. For
quite,
sure.
quite honestly.
And especially now where everything is instantly on the internet, everything is under scrutiny, you know, everything is being posted, everybody has an opinion, you know, and I'm so glad that you said something about, you know, just the whole concept of being a slave to it because, you know, whenever first and foremost, whenever we say anything or anybody says anything about Black women, you know, Black women in particular get a little riled up
Mhm.
because, you know, can't nobody say nothing about Black women doing anything that isn't necessarily the best idea,
Right.
you know? And this isn't about wearing a weave versus being natural and which one is better or worse or anything like that. That's not what this conversation is about. The conversation is about the psychology behind a Black woman believing that having the weave
Mhm.
having the contouring, getting the cosmetic surgery is what makes them beautiful.
Right.
They're in their Black selves independently without all of that stuff is not beautiful. We're talking about that psychology. So if anybody's getting their Twitter fingers ready to start talking about, well, I wear a weave and ain't nothing wrong with that, and we protecting our hair and all this, that's not what this conversation is about.
Look here, put a pin in that. Y'all killing me with this hair protection. I am so tired of people talking. What? So
can't hear you.
I think you lost me for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with all of this hair protection, because that is the go-to excuse, you're protecting your hair to do what with it later? Seriously, are you going to preserve it after you die? What are you? It ain't all the protection in the world. I mean, you would think that our hair was made of dust. Like, what are you? That is always the excuse. I'm wearing a protective style every day. Every day for your life.
Right.
Like, get out. Just get out. I'm sorry, I had to. Go on.
I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah. But but with that being said, like I said, this isn't about, we are naturally creative, artistic people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so that art is sometimes demonstrated through fashion and hair and jewelry and makeup and all of that kind of stuff. And so nobody is speaking to trying to hinder or quiet the art of what is us,
Right.
in demonstrating ourselves in the way that we do. But like I said, when you believe that, when you buy into the hype that beauty equals European,
Right.
and that manifests in whatever way that manifests, that's problematic.
Yeah.
It's problematic, and it's really a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you say, you do become a slave to it, and you just go further and further down the rabbit hole, as these different trends and things start to develop. It only gets worse. It doesn't get better. You know what I mean? It's like, if you think about, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but like, when we were talking about the whole video vixen thing,
Mm-hmm.
In the early 90s, you might see a girl with, a form-fitting dress on, but it may have been like right above the knee or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like what was deemed sexy or whatever. And then, you go a couple of years forward, and it might be, some shorts, like the Daisy Dukes or whatever, and a tank top, and that was what was considered sexy. And fast forward to now, where these young girls are on the stage in a thong, performing and popping and all of this stuff. They were in a thong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is what is acceptable. The line continues to move.
Right.
So just like with everything else, the line is going to continue to move.
Yeah.
And so that's how you see these women walking down the street that weigh 12 pounds with legs like lollipop sticks and these big old bubble butts. And it's like, how in the world do you think that even goes together?
Right.
When my son was little, whenever like we would play the matching game or whatever, he'd be like, that not belong. When I see these women, these little peg legs and these big old booties. That's what I think. That's not long. It's just it's
Oh,
sad. And I'm not,
yeah.
I'm not saying this to try to bully anybody. Like I said, by all means, live your life. I don't want nobody telling me how to live my life. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just saying that as Black people, we need to start thinking about why we do the things that we do, because white supremacy is so deeply ingrained in our psyche.
Mm-hmm.
This is generations and generations of belief that has been imposed on us. And there's so many things that we do on autopilot without even investigating it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's worth taking time to really ask yourself why you do the things that you do. Whether it's a weave or anything, anything else for that matter. Just ask yourself, why do I do this? Why do I believe this? Why do I think this way? Where is this coming from? Who influenced this decision? What kind of person are they? How do they view race and and that type of thing? Like, these things matter. These
They
things
do.
matter.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And I saw a video yesterday that was quite disturbing, where it was a young woman who has uh, a lucrative hair business in Africa. I forget which country. Forget which country in Africa. But she had a pretty lucrative hair business, selling bundles and doing weaves and all this kind of thing. And she had a 5-year-old daughter and I believe a 2-year-old daughter. And she was installing lace front wigs on her 5-year-old daughter.
Oh my gosh.
And it was so disturbing. I cannot even explain.
Mm.
I cannot even explain. Um, so the whole video was kind of going through and going through the young lady's, like Instagram and Twitter history, where it seemed like every time there was a special occasion, she would get her daughter's hair done, meaning a weave or whatever. So she's teaching her daughter that this is what it's supposed to look like for a special occasion.
Mm.
You go and get a weave. You don't do something in your hair. You go and get a weave. And it looked ridiculous. It made her look like, a 30-year-old midget. It really did. She did. She did. She's 5. She's 5.
Excuse me, ma'am. The appropriate word would be little person.
I'm sorry.
Ding.
She looks like a 30-year-old little person. I apologize. But it just was disturbing. Like, on what planet? On what planet is this all right? But because her mother had this frame of mind, she just passed it right on to her daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many generations before that, and where did it come from?
Right.
Where did it come from?
But my thing is, I thought it was interesting too that this was in Africa. So we can probably be here for days talking about how that all came about. It's just crazy. And we were having a discussion the other day, I think as we were watching it, and I was talking about, I went natural. I believe it's been 10 or 12 years at this point. And I remember, just thinking, I don't know what my natural hair texture is like. Because when I, first went natural, I was still getting perms. And so, I mean, at that point, I really wasn't sure what my natural hair texture was like. When I was smaller, my mom was pressing my hair. And then, I elevated to getting perms. And so, of course, between perms, you can tell you have the new growth, but you don't really know what your hair texture is really like. And that's like, it's so crazy to think that for, say, a great majority of Black women, when they went natural, at whatever age that was, you were discovering your hair texture for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
That I'm discovering what my natural hair texture is like for the first time in, I don't know, my 20s, my 30s, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And we are like the only race that can say that. I say that with confidence.
Mm-hmm. It's very true. It's very true. And unless a woman does what they call the big chop and just shave it all off at one time, or cut it down to the part where where the natural hair starts, a lot of times they end up giving up in that whole process, because if half of your hair is relaxed and half of your hair is natural, well, quite quite naturally, I mean, if you're accustomed to handling your hair in a relaxed state, and then all of a sudden there's deeper, tighter coils at the root, it's going to take time for you to learn and understand how to manage it, and so it's going to be difficult in that learning curve.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't willing to go through that learning curve to figure out what that's all about.
Yeah. And yeah, I completely understand it's difficult, but it's just crazy that that's even really the case.
Mhm.
But I think it's important to really talk about all of these things and ask a lot of questions about, why, and really get a handle on what you really think of yourself for yourself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And just, this is just my belief, but I think it's also important to have that conversation with your creator, because that's the only place you can really go for clarity. You can't go
Yes.
outside and get, approval and clarity from anywhere else,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone else is going to have their own view and their own opinions of you. You have to go to the one that made you, and
Yes.
and have some time and say, this is how you made me, and I need you to change my mind, change my eyes on how I see the creation that you made,
Yeah.
despite what everything around me is telling me.
Yeah. It's true.
So,
So true.
um, so I wanted to go to something else. So I think a lot of time, well, I've heard the argument before that, you know, a lot of what we do in terms of cosmetics, in terms of hair, in terms of dress, we do it for men because, men expect this and men like this and that and the third. But then it's like, wait a minute. Most, if not all, major women's magazines have editors that are white women. So white women are in charge of these images that are being put out in at least the major magazines. So if you have women in there, which you do, that look like death a lot of the time for white women's magazines, because I'm kind of going general for a second. A lot of these models look like death. There's no other way to put it. It has to be purposeful. Their cheeks are shrunken in. They look pale. They look emaciated. The clothes are hanging off of them. White women are in charge of this. We can't put this on men. And I've heard a lot of men say they don't like the eyelashes. They don't like the tons and tons of weave. Now we'll say, but you always dealing with girls that have it. Well, what choice do I have? What choice they have? I mean, let's be for real. If that's what the norm is, they just have to roll with it. And I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like men have to roll with whatever we decide we're doing this year. Whatever we decide is the hot thing this year, they just like, well, all right, they're wearing eyelashes out to the elbows. All right, they're wearing, 15 packs of weave. Okie dokie. Yeah. You just roll with it. I don't think it's an issue of this is what men are saying they want.
Right.
I know men will say they like women with a healthy butt. You know what I mean? Some men like thin women. They'll say things like that. Some men like long hair, but I've never heard a man say, I want a woman who has a lace front with with the whole first 5 inches to be baby hair. Right? you know I want her to have eyelashes like a giraffe. I want her to have a 10-inch waist. And I want her to have hips that are 50 inches. Like I've never heard you'll never hear a man say that because it sounds ridiculous. And I just don't think that's what men really, really want. And I just wanted to put that in there because I think that's a lot of times is what we kind of go to as women in general. Well, this is what men want. And no, I think we get it twisted. It seems like that's what they want because that's who they end up with. But they're at our mercy, whatever we decide to do and look like, because let's be real, we're not listening to what men, we're not listening to them. We're not. That's a whole other conversation, but ain't nobody listening now.
All right. It's true.
Okay. Just want to put that out there.
Yep. They're not listening and they don't care.
No.
Because black women care about the opinions of other black women.
Thank you.
So all of the nonsense that they're doing is to either impress or compete with other black women.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the thought process of a man, except in terms of winning or losing in the competition for that man.
That's true.
You know?
It's true.
And it's sad. That's sad to say. And that spills over into other things, which we've talked about in other shows.
Exactly.
But, you can just see how, something that could be so basic and simplistic turns into, when you really break it down, it becomes a bigger component of the breakdown in the black family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the condition that we're in as a people. And this is not, some conspiracy theory or anything like that. Like, we have to recognize that as black people in America, we have gone through the most horrific trauma that could ever be imagined. And that the true story, the complete story of that trauma is not being told, it's being withheld. As far as the details are being withheld, although the details are imprinted on our spirits. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, when you really think about, like, when you come into the understanding that black babies were ripped from the arms of their mothers and put in cages on the shore of the bayou as alligator bait. Like, hear me with that.
Yeah.
That type of trauma, or watching your baby have a nail driven through its head because it was believed that black people did not experience pain. This is the type of trauma that is imprinted upon our soul.
Yeah.
That has been passed down from generation to generation. So no, it's not that it's just a weave. It's not that it's just contouring. You know what I mean? It's not just that. This is the legacy that we come from. It's not the complete legacy, because before that was way greater. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But as far as our history in America, this is what it is. And right. So to want to emulate anything that is a reflection of our torture is nothing short of Stockholm syndrome to me.
Yeah. Which I believe all of us, the great majority of us, suffer from without even knowing it.
Absolutely.
Black people. And,
absolutely.
And I just want to say, we always have to give our what do you call it? Disclaimers, Yeah. So I just want to say, neither of us is saying that we're perfect. We have it all together. We've made it to the mountaintop. We're not trying to be the Martin Luther Kings of Black women. That's not what we're doing. We're not saying we have all the answers. you know what I mean, at all. What we're saying is we have gotten to a place where we understand that everything that we do, the way we operate, the decisions we make, the way that we present ourselves, and how we interact with each other and other people, you have to look within and ask yourself, where is this coming from and why? Is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to portray? Or is this for a different reason? Is this to fit in to a society and a system that has the mission of oppressing me or changing me or taking advantage of me? Or is this something I've decided for myself that I want to do? We're just saying, ask, look within, think about it, meditate about it, pray about it, do research, learn your history, read, listen to other people's opinions, listen to people that you really don't agree with, right? Listen to people you don't agree with. And you be surprised. It's like, you know what? I don't agree with this person on everything, but they have some great information. Or they made a good point on this. I still disagree with them on this, but they made a good point about this. Or they gave me insight about this, that, and the third. You know, because, you know, if anybody feels like we're just off and everything is great and there's nothing wrong, cool. Please, in the comments, please comment. But you know, from what I'm seeing, we're being molded into, as Black women, we're being molded into something else. We're being erased as Black women. We're being made into clowns, caricatures, you know, looking like monsters for some of us as Black women that are doing these very drastic plastic surgeries, all of these different things. We're just, it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's an absolute mess. It's a mishmash because you do have this section, if you will, of Black women that are trying to embrace, you know, our natural beauty, our natural hair, and all of that. But it feels like that movement is being quieted, honestly, by by these images that, like you said, it's a costume, it's a uniform, where all of the women look the same. You know, they have the same weave with the part down the middle and the hair wavy hanging down. They have the contoured nose, like you said, and the eyelashes and the cinched waist. We know what it's going to be. We know what it's going to be. And then you have the young ladies growing up and they think that's what they're supposed to look like. And there's no emphasis on anything but that. And let me just say this one more thing that has disturbed me to no end. You've heard of Chloe and Halle, or Chloe and Haley Bailey, the two.
Oh, yeah.
I have been following them since they first started on YouTube. Some years ago, I came across them and I thought their voices were beautiful and amazing. When I first heard them, I was like, that can't be them. It can't be them. Thought they were absolutely amazing. So I've been following them for years. And so I was excited, you know, for them when they got signed by Beyonce and, you know, all of this kind of stuff. I think is really, really great. And I get them mixed up, but I think it's Chloe is the one who's been kind of putting her body out there, you know, doing these videos and everything. And she's a beautiful girl. Nobody's going to take that from her. She's a beautiful girl. Her voice is amazing. She's very talented. But she did make a video where she was talking about how she just wasn't comfortable with herself or her body at one point, and now she is, and that's great. The problem is, I feel like she is putting herself in a position where her body is overshadowing her talent. Especially this most recent video she had, where it's just disturbing. I mean, my husband was too embarrassed to finish watching it, quite honestly, because she still looks like a little girl in the face to me. But she's doing all these things, and I struggle with it. I struggle with it because I love Beyonce, and I see her emulating Beyonce. Yes. So I'm struggling with the fact that I love Beyonce, and I'm like, well, aren't I being a hypocrite? Because I'm cool with Beyonce doing it, but then I don't know. I guess it's because I see it in development, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
And it's disturbing. So it's like this young lady has talent.
Yeah.
But because of what's going on, and because she's like, okay, if I want to make it, if I want to be relevant, I want to compete with these other women out here because I am a grown woman now, then this is what I have to bring to the table. Don't matter care about my voice. I don't care that I can stand on stage and out sing anybody else out here.
Right.
And I feel like she's kind of fallen in line, and it makes me sad.
Yeah. I saw, I don't know where the performance was, and she had a pink outfit. Well, if you want to call it, I'll say air quotes outfit, because it was the string up the butt, basically. And when I saw her dancing, I thought about Beyonce, because she has that type of potential in her performance.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, different people have opinions on whether Beyonce can sing or not, but collectively, I think that we can all agree that her performance level is stellar. Like, there's just certain people, Michael Jackson, I would even say like Chris Brown, like there's certain people that are just performers.
Yeah.
You know, and she has that kind of star power, I think. And I think when you were saying, you know, the discomfort in seeing her, I think where the difference lies is now we are her elder. See, when Beyonce came out, you know, Beyonce is 40.
Yeah.
So when Beyonce came out, she was more like our peer. You know what I'm saying? So you're looking at it through a different lens.
That's true.
But I'm sure that when our parents saw Beyonce, they felt the same way that we feel seeing this little baby twerking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because she's more than that.
Much more.
You know?
I
know that's kind of, we kind of went off on a tangent, but that's what we do, ladies and gentlemen. But it all kind of filters down. Right. It does. And that need for validation, acceptance, approval, you know, all of those things, you know, we are all guilty in some way, whether we follow the European standard of beauty, or whether we follow, you know, the quote unquote rules and regulations of Black culture. There is something that we measure by.
Yeah.
And whatever that thing is that we measure by, we deem things appropriate, acceptable, unacceptable, inappropriate, all of that. You know what I mean? And if we're not careful, then we can become a slave to that and need the validation and acceptance based upon that particular measure. So
absolutely. So as always, we're gonna end it there. And as always, we want to thank you all for listening. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. We really do, you know, enjoy seeing your comments. We want this to be a conversation. We're not about seeing how many people agree with us. It's about, you know, genuinely having a conversation, hearing each other out, considering someone else's point of view. That's just pretty much what it's about. We want to thank NERDSoul as always for allowing us to be on his platform. And next time we will continue this series, and we're going to be talking about healing and looking within to learn to love and accept yourself. That's what we're going to be focused on next time. So once again, thank you, and bye, y'all.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.